Let's talk to Debbie Acott now, who's the head of rates at Auckland Council. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Diane. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's a good chance just to get some facts on the table because not everyone understands this. Have been some fears raised which aren't necessarily going to happen.
Right, yeah.
Talk us through how it actually does work, because there's a fear that if the valuation has gone up 46%, then the rates are going to go up 46%, but that's not the case, is it?
That's definitely not the case, no. So 46% is the average for residential properties. Now, if you've got a revaluation that's gone up more than 46%, then you may receive a rates increase next year. But if you're at that average of 46%, your rates won't be impacted by the revaluation at all. And if your valuation has gone up less than 46%, you may even see a decrease, depending on what else happens with the rates, because it's not all just linked to the valuation.
Yeah, so the 46% is the ground zero, if you like.
Yeah.
Above there, you might face an increase. Below there, you might face a slight reduction.
That's right, yeah.
And in terms of this claim that Auckland Council is getting more money from this, is that necessarily true?
That's absolutely not true. So the budget stays the same. If you think of the budget like a pie, and that's how much we're going to collect from rates, that pie doesn't get any bigger because of revaluation. So your revaluation just determines the portion of the pie that you're going to pay.
So this is a rebalancing of what you're going to pay, and if you're well above the average, then you're going to face an increase. We were hearing from Joe Holmes there that rates could go up by thousands and not hundreds. Again, is that accurate in most cases?
No, definitely not in most cases. There may be some higher increases in some of the areas that have been rezoned because of the Unitary Plan, but the market hasn't picked up on all of those areas yet that have been changed. But in the fringes of the city, there have been reflected in the sale. Or if you've put on a new property, obviously your valuation will have gone up because you've built a house.
Yeah.
So then you might see
We also hear from people who say they get their rates bill and they go, the value of improvements versus land has gone up by X, and they say, well, I haven't done anything except paint the fence or whatever. How do you actually make those assessments? I mean, you can't go and inspect every property, obviously. So,
no, that's a really good question, actually, and it's one that we get asked a lot. So the way that the valuations are calculated is the capital value is looked at first. So that's what a property might sell at as at the particular date. So in this case, we're at the 1st of July 2017. So the capital value is worked out as to looking at sales in the area. And then the land value is calculated. And the land value is calculated as if there was no house on the property and it was sold as their land at the same date. So the improvement value isn't particularly linked to what you've got on it. We don't do a calculation in the same way as a market valuation where it's built up from the land value. So it's just purely the difference. But it's got to be remembered that these valuations can't be used for insurance purposes or anything like that. They're purely for the purposes of rates. And rates can be calculated on land value or on the capital values for general rates. And so I think from legislation point of view, they're not all that interested in the improvement value.
No, look, I'm not drawing you into a political argument here because that's up for the council, and I know that's not your job. But when we talk about a pledge to not increase rates by more than 2.5% or 3% or whatever a figure that a politician gives, what does that actually mean? Does that mean that the average rise right across properties would be no more than whatever figure that the politician wants to give? That's not a commitment that there will be no rates rise more than 2.5%, 3%.
That's correct, because there's a lot of things to take into account. But if you think of the pie that I was talking about, that budget, that's that 2.5%. So the budget might increase by 2.5%, but your portion might change if your valuation has changed, but by an amount different from the average.
Hey, thanks very much for your time, Debbie. That's Debbie Acott there, who's the head of rates at Auckland Council.